Hey guys, welcome back. So today I have a really important topic. It has to do with forgiveness. And to be honest, forgiving someone for hurting you in and of itself can be challenging. But we're going to be talking about forgiving someone that's not even sorry. So it takes the challenge of forgiving to a whole new level. So that being said, let's dive in. For those that don't know me, my name is Michele. I'm a life and relationship coach. I'm super passionate about helping people to learn not so much about the narcissist, although that is part of it, but really about learning how to break free of the trauma that narcissistic abuse inflicts on a person. Okay, so let's talk about forgiving somebody that's not even sorry. And a phrase that I hear a lot with my coaching clients is they'll say something like, Michele, I can't forgive, or I don't even want to forgive because I feel like if I do that, then I'm letting them off the hook. Let me know in the comments below if that's something that you felt or that you're battling with. So when I was putting together this video, I was like, okay, well, let's really kind of evaluate that. Like, are they on the hook? So the expression letting someone off the hook actually refers to, if we were to look at it logically and cognitively, when we let somebody off the hook, what we are doing is we're letting somebody get away without being punished. It also means when we don't want to let somebody off the hook, it means we don't want to let them escape from blame, responsibility, and obligation. So let's think about that for a second. Like, first of all, I just want to say that anyone that has inflicted narcissistic abuse on anybody deserves to be punished. What they did was 100% wrong. And this piece is hard because the truth is 8 out of 10, and that's statistic purely from my own mind, that statistic can be completely wrong, but it's almost like 8 out of 10 people that have inflicted narcissistic abuse, they don't ever suffer consequences. Like, I just want to acknowledge that reality. And that is a painful reality. To know that somebody did so much damage to you that you're probably still recovering even years after it's over is horrible. Okay. So these are some hard truths that do make forgiving people that aren't sorry, people that are high on the scale of NPD, they make it hard and challenging because we're human. So to know that somebody inflicted that much damage and just walks away squeaky clean, so to speak, like with nothing on them, with no consequence, is hard. But this is where we have to kind of pause and say, okay, like that's not fair. We need to validate that truth. That sucks, right? Most of the time with narcissistic abuse, there's nothing you can do, right? There's no authority, although in certain countries, coercive abuse is now illegal. And that's wonderful. But to prove it is really, really hard. There's a lot of anger that comes with that. There's a lot of resentment that builds. And the thing with anger and resentment is they don't hurt the narcissist. They only hurt the person that's feeling it. So for example, sometimes I'll work with a client that says, I'm not going to forgive because then they're let off the hook. So again, having someone on the hook means they're being punished, right? So sometimes I'll ask one of my clients, I'll say, okay, so if they're still on the hook and because you recognize they deserve to be punished, right? That's just a reality. How is the anger and the lack of forgiveness punishing them? Now, this is where we have to remember that narcissists aren't like regular people. Because to be honest, if I hurt somebody, if I hurt a friend of mine and they were still mad at me and they just couldn't get over it, and they were so full of, a lot of intense emotions, and now they refuse to talk to me. And this was somebody I cared about. The fact that they don't want to talk to me, the fact that they feel that way about me is going to affect me. It's going to bother me. It's going to hurt me. It's going to be festering in me to motivate me to make peace in some way. That's healthy, right? So when we hold somebody or we keep somebody on the hook for something they did that is unresolved and they are a healthy person, well, that can lead to good results. Often it motivates the person to take action, to recognize that they did something that hurt the person, and to be motivated to take action to reconcile. But we're not dealing with a regular person, with a narcissist, where somebody healthy would be like, oh, wow, I did that. Like I made them feel that way and feel bad and motivated to reconcile. The narcissist is like, oh, I did that. No, I did that. I did that. Wow. 5 years later, they're still mad. They can't get past me. I must be super important. I must be that powerful that this person can't even live their life. They can't even stop thinking about me. That's what a narcissist thinks when they see that you can't let go of the anger and resentment. It doesn't hurt them. It fuels them. Another thing that I wanted to mention is that, we're talking about forgiveness, and the other thing that tends to come up with this topic, which I know it can be very triggering to talk about this, because when we have wounds that haven't healed, these topics can trigger unhealed and unresolved wounds. So it's understandable. But the other thing that happens with forgiveness, or sometimes we think, I don't want to forgive because that means if I forgive, that means it's okay. And that means, they can continue to do that. And that's not what forgiveness means either. Forgiveness is not synonymous with tolerance. That was a mistake I made in one relationship I was in. It was a long-term relationship. And so what would happen is the person, of course, at the time, I didn't understand or see, or I was not able to recognize a false apology from a real apology. So when the apology came and I forgave, I was all in again. Like I was all in, no walls, complete transparency, wanting to make the relationship work, wanting to do my best, wanting to believe in that person, only to get hurt again. So I'm not talking about that kind of blind forgiveness that we were stuck in for a long time, where we think that by forgiving means that we need to have them in our life and we need to allow and just tolerate abuse, because that's not healthy either. So just putting to the side what forgiveness isn't, right? Because we have to understand that forgiveness is not any of that. So forgiveness, and I want to read something that I came across because it was a really nice definition. So let me pull that up. So it says that psychologists generally define forgiveness as a conscious, deliberate decision to release feelings of resentment or vengeance toward a person or group who has harmed you, regardless of whether they actually deserve your forgiveness. And they clarify that forgiveness does not mean that you gloss over or deny the seriousness of an offense against you. It doesn't mean you forget it. It doesn't mean you condone it, and it doesn't mean you make excuses for it. It also doesn't mean that you're obligated to reconcile with the person who has harmed you. And then it goes on to say that forgiveness brings the forgiver peace of mind and frees him or her from corrosive anger. It empowers you to recognize the pain you suffered, acknowledge it, but without letting that pain now define you, enabling you to heal and move on with your life. So I liked how it brought out that a lack of forgiveness is kind of intertwined with anger. And anger is like poison. It's like poison to the body. It can make you sick. It can make you unhealthy, and it can steal your joy from the things that are taking place in your life. And I also like that it said, by forgiving, we are able to move on, to really move forward from the past. That piece of forgiveness is important, because when we forgive, we are no longer staring at what was done. When we're staring at what was done over and over, we're reliving the pain, because that's the way the brain works, right? When we visualize something, when we think about something, the brain, the neurons in our brain react to what we're thinking about as if it was happening. That's why all the feelings come up in the body, because your body is reacting to it as if it's really happening, even at the moment. So it can be years later. And by continually looking at it and thinking about it, you are re-traumatizing yourself. Like, we can't move forward if we're staring at the past. At the same time, I want to take a moment to acknowledge that just because we have that information doesn't mean like my body's like, oh, yes, now I get it. Michele said that and I can forgive. Nope. Nope. Everything I just said still isn't enough to be able to work your way towards forgiveness. And so I wanted to give you guys some tips that helped me. And hopefully, if you're struggling with this, especially if you've been out of relationships for a long time, but the anger keeps you glued to them, hopefully these tips can help.